Welcome to the Lifeline, a production of Simply BJE. The goal of this podcast is to build, inspire, and to empower our listeners through conversations on business, leadership, and mental health. We invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at www.simplybje.com/the Lifeline. Now, let's tune in for today's episode. Top of the day, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Lifeline. We're your host, life coach, and motivational speaker, Bo Powell, social media influencer and owner of the For Real brand, Lindsberg Petway, and yours truly, leadership coach and mental health advocate, Barry J. Elliott. You can visit us at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline and on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and now YouTube. Today, we have a very special guest, Mr. Frederick Douglas Bussey. He is a businessman and entrepreneur, and he is a forward thinker. I call him the Renaissance man, and once he starts talking, you'll understand why. Renaissance man, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, gentlemen. Good to be here with you.
Glad
to have you here.
Thank you for joining us. So you are involved in a number of successful business ventures, right? So tell us a little bit about the business ventures that you have and how you got started.
All right, I'll give you the short story, which is still a long story, but I'll compress it a little bit.
Okay.
I run a business advisory called Icon Status, but 25 years ago now, I became an accidental entrepreneur. I was actually pursuing a career in music. I was part of a singing group back in the days when Boyz II Men and Jodeci were in their heyday. We dabbled between gospel and R&B, and so coming up after graduating college, pursuing a career in music means you got to take those long road trips. You're trying to go wherever you can to get the opportunities. Back in the day, you couldn't just put your music on the internet. You had to cut a demo. You had to be in the studio. You had to go and perform live for people in different venues and things like that. So I was looking for an opportunity to get a different career to kind of support myself as we were building the music. And I met a gentleman at a networking opportunity, bought my first commercial cleaning franchise a couple of weeks later after borrowing $200 from my parents for the down payment. And so I became an entrepreneur. I learned what it means to be in business for yourself. And that's been the journey ever since. Eventually, I left, went full-time in the business. I moved to Atlanta, Georgia from Alabama, where the business was. I was running remotely while I was getting involved in the music industry, and over time progressed from the creative side to the business side, became an artist manager and marketing director for a small label. Then moved from there to being a celebrity publicist, junior publicist, worked there for several years, then started my own marketing agency, became a partner in a PR firm for several years, left that to start my own marketing agency again. And eventually a couple of young ladies came up to me and asked me to coach them in their businesses because I've been in so many businesses, serial entrepreneur, and I fell in love with coaching and advising. And so I've been doing that for going on 7 years now, advising entrepreneurs. We work with business owners who have between 5 and 50 employees, who want to create more freedom, who want to be less obligated to work so many hours in their business every day, every week. I want to be able to build generational wealth either through an exit strategy or just being able to pass on a sustainable business to their family. So that's where I am today, entrepreneur, father of 3 amazing children, 13, 8, and 6. And my wife, Deli-Ann, we've been married for 15 years this month, actually. Just celebrated our 15th anniversary.
Well, happy anniversary.
Congratulations, man.
I rest my case. Renaissance man.
Right. So you're not just going to speed bump over the fact that you're in an all male group. You got to tell us the name of the group, what type of song. You got to let us know.
So the name of the group was Montage.
Okay.
Myself, Michael, and Caleb Sims, Darian Bryant, and Steve Reed. Some of my college friends. Darian was actually the youngest at the time, but we had a good little run there. We actually were on the Showtime at the Apollo.
Okay.
Interesting fact, we were there taping the weekend that Aaliyah died, which was 2 weeks before 9/11 in New York. Yeah, so that's probably the highlight of our career, but as a group anyway. So Well, we had a great run. I've always loved music. I'm still involved in music. I have business partners in a record label as well. So we're still doing that. We're still using that creative side, that creative energy. You know,
Great, great.
the music has shifted a lot these days, but
Oh, man.
Definitely.
you know,
So I heard you
I
mention college a couple of times, not to cut you off. What college
mhm.
did you attend?
So I went to HBCU, Oakwood University. Used to be
Okay,
Oakwood College in Huntsville, Alabama. Yeah.
okay,
So
okay.
our claim to fame is we're home to Take Six, Brian McKnight.
Oh, okay.
Prince actually went there for about a semester back in the '60s. So
Okay.
yeah, we have a very rich musical history and really, really great experience. You know.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
So in our community, we're taught to go to school, get a
Hmm.
job. We don't hear anything about just becoming business owners and entrepreneurs. What sparked all of this? Because you have done a lot, even being a artist. That's kind of like an entrepreneur because you betting on yourself.
Hmm.
What sparked all this?
Yeah. So my father was a minister growing up, and I think part of it was the influence of him not having a regular 9 to 5. I saw my father take an entrepreneurial approach to being a minister, right? He was very resourceful, very innovative in a lot of things he did. I remember one time at our church, he was famous for rearranging the church. He pushed all the pews to the middle to give a different sort of ambiance to create more collective sense of community with the membership. So he was known for those types of things. Hustler. He was the type of pastor who would cut the grass at the church as well. So he wasn't just leaving it to the deacons and the elders. He was very hands on in that regard, and I think that that sense of hustle really motivated me. So it just kind of felt natural when I was looking for an alternative to the career that I had at the time. Um, that I became an entrepreneur, it kind of made sense for me for some reason to think about starting a business, because I saw that as the avenue to having more time freedom. And that's kind of where it landed for me. So I think there were a lot of hints probably growing up. My father feels like the greatest influence because we grew up in rural Mississippi. We
Wow.
didn't know any rich people, any entrepreneurs that I can think of. My idea was of a businessman was a guy in a suit who had a briefcase. That was the most entrepreneurial culture. LLC culture is rampant today. It's very, very popular. The idea of it anyway. But that was a misnomer growing up. So I think that somehow I was just because I grew up kind of an off beaten path. My parents homeschooled myself and my 3 siblings for all 12 years.
Wow.
So I never went to traditional school. I think that just being outside the box in that regard just kind of laid the foundation for taking an unconventional path to success.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely could see that.
It sounds like you said it, all the clues had been there,
Mm-hmm.
like your whole life, so it was just kind of seems like a natural transition for you to move into entrepreneurship. How big of an influence, I know you mentioned your father was a big influence
Mm-hmm.
toward entrepreneur. But what are some things that you saw that you really feel like kind of fed that passion to become a business owner?
I think so. Being homeschooled,
Mhm.
my mother would always set up the schoolroom in the house or maybe at one of the churches, depending on where we work. We moved probably every 5 years when I was growing up to a different location. We lived in Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama. So I was used to not having roots too deeply settled anywhere. So I felt that need or that urge sometimes to always find something fresh, something new, and the sense of freedom, time freedom especially. My mother would make the lesson plans for the week, and she had to make me stick to the day at a time because I would have done them all by Tuesday and then spent the rest of the week doing whatever I wanted to do. And typically that's what I would do throughout the day. I'd finish my work by maybe noon. And then I used to write sci-fi novels in my spare time. I would work on different projects. When I got into music, it was writing songs and things like that. So I think naturally that was part of the thing that I guess stifled me some was having a 9 to 5. You had to be there for 40 hours every week to make the money. to be able to pay the bills. And once I was turned on to entrepreneurship and realized, I can go get these contracts. I actually bought a commercial cleaning franchise. And so when I realized, I could go to work from 5 to 9 or 10 every night and make the same money that I was making when I had to be at the store all day. I worked at Men's Warehouse, so having to be there all day and then on Sundays as well, it was stifling to me. And so that appeal of having your own revenue source, your own responsibility, that kind of thing, it didn't throw me off at all.
Yeah, that's what's up. And so I'm curious, because I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs where, like you said, your advisory firm is trying to help people not have to work so much.
Yeah.
But naturally speaking, most entrepreneurs, man, they are grinding all the time. So as a successful business owner, man, and a family man at the same time, how do you balance it all?
So I know our topic tonight is work-life balance. I'll tell you that when we talk with our clients, we tell them that the next time they get in their car, to roll down the window and throw the word balance out.
Yeah.
Life is not about balance. Like if you're going to bake a cake, you don't want equal part eggs, equal parts sugar, equal parts flour, equal parts oil, right? It's about having the right ratio of things. And so there are some things that will go a long way to getting you the outcome that you want. And so it's about the output, not necessarily the input. And I know that hustle culture and grind culture has been a big part of entrepreneurship as become more popular. And people love to talk about how hard they're working. But in essence, when you get to a certain level in your business, working hard actually works against you and it keeps you from growing too much. And there's multiple reasons for that. We can get into that. But for me personally, it's about, first of all, setting your priorities, and having a family, I think, makes me a better business owner, a much better entrepreneur, because it gives me the priorities and things are shifted. We also homeschool our 3 kids, right? So we have other resources in place to support that. So I'm not necessarily tied to the desk with them every day. But we want to be able to create that freedom, and freedom actually comes through structure. So being able to structure, I live by my calendar. And it doesn't mean that every minute is regimented. What it does mean is that it's all accounted for, and I know that I can be fully present wherever I am because I have the structure in place to make sure that I'm getting the outcomes that I need to have and have the support. You got to have the support community, you got to have structure, and also you have to have something bigger at play. I think that for a lot of people, when they are an entrepreneur especially, you've got something that you're trying to get towards, a goal, a revenue amount, whatever the case may be. But I think when you're playing a bigger game, it definitely helps you to put things in perspective, because if not, you're going to get dragged down into the mud of the mundane. You're going to be constantly pulled in all different directions, and other people are always going to be in charge of your life and your time versus the other way around.
Wow.
That's good.
That's good perspective. As soon as you gave that example about baking a cake, it became so simple. And that analogy is you don't want equal everything, because that would be a terrible cake. So if you look at your life, there has to be a sprinkle of this, more of that, more flour, more icing, all type of things. That's real good. In 2013, Teresa Taylor wrote The Balance Myth, Rethinking the Work-Life Success. We'll start with you, Frederick. But this question is for all of us. And I think you kind of hit it off already. Is there a work-life balance myth? Is there such a thing where you can have enough work, where you can have enough rest and try to balance it all, especially when you're trying to start something? I remember when I first started in automotive sales, and I was building my dealership, quote unquote, within it. And I was grinding. I mean, like nonstop. I mean, like waking up at 4 o'clock, getting home at 10 o'clock, getting a couple hours and doing it over and over again. But it's put me in position now where it kind of runs itself. People are walking in asking. So is it a certain period of time where you have to give too much and then you can step back?
I think that the answer is it depends. It depends on what you want. You know, clearly you had a vision for what you wanted to build. You saw yourself at some point being able to break free of that. And the thing I would say is it's really about optimal leadership. That's the key ingredient. I talk a lot when I give talks. I talk about the 5 levels of leadership, and those levels of leadership actually correspond to revenue amounts when you look at successful businesses all the way up to $1 billion plus businesses, right? So then level 1 is learning how to lead yourself, right? So learning how to structure your time to be able to get yourself to give the energy to be able to focus and get certain outcomes. And level 2 is learning how to lead your clients or your customers. Usually level 1 will get you up to 6 figures, somewhere in that range. You might get to $250,000 just hustling and grinding by yourself. At a certain point, you got to be able to hire other people, right? But you got to be able to get enough clients to be able to do that. So the next level above that is around the $250,000 to $500,000 range, maybe a little bit more. These days with the internet, you can get up to $1 million if you've got the right tools in place. Learning how to lead your clients. You got to be able to lead them to the point of a decision. You got to be able to help people to buy your products and services and be able to deliver what they need. And then level 3 is learning how to lead your team, being able to hire people to be able to get outcomes and results through others, right? And so that can get you into the double digits, $10 million or more, being able to lead your team. And then you want to get up to about between 10 and 100 million. You got to learn how to lead your industry. So you've got to become a market leader. And so that means understanding what influences are out there, how you can distribute your message at a wider scale and be able to get those results. So you're compounding your leadership of yourself, your clients, and your team to be able to lead your industry. And then when we start getting into the 9 and 10 figures, we're talking about being able to lead the world. You want to become world-class at what you do. And so to answer your question, if you can start out, as Zig Ziglar would say, start with the end in mind, you want to be able to say, I want to be able to lead the world. If that's your mission, then you're going to build a structure that's going to allow you to do that from the very beginning. And most of us don't really do that, right? Yeah. To be fair, like if you were like me, I was an accidental entrepreneur. I had no idea what that really meant. But over time, you develop the disciplines, or you instill the disciplines or the study of building that structure. I think that's how I would answer that question, because a lot of people don't really have that vision. Sometimes people start a business out of pure necessity. They have no choice, right? Or they do it out of panic, or just they hate their job and they have to do something. And so they start out and it's a way of getting away from something rather than moving towards something. And I think that really is going to determine the level of focus that you have and the level of effort you're going to put in. Yes, it's going to be hard in the beginning, but it's not necessarily because it has to be hard, but just that it often is hard because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I had an end in mind, but the way you just broke it down as far as yourself, clients, team, industry, and world, now I have that kind of vision. When you break it down like that, my perspective on work-life balance is you grind at the initial point to get to where you want it to be, and then you have to step back and put people in place so it can grow. I just say, looking in the mirror, my life is hectic. Sometimes it's because of all the things that we have to do. And I pick those little pieces of time to get rest, to try to balance it out. And when you have a lot of responsibility, I think it's challenging. So my personal opinion, to piggyback on what you said, is kind of find out your end. And as you go through it, continue to take those pieces of time to refresh, regroup, take trips, take care of yourself. Because sometimes people just have the balance of work, and then you have the balance of life and family and caregiving and all these other things and being in different places. And when you become the face of the brand, such as myself, it's kind of hard to shift that out because everybody wants you, but you got to be able to say no. All of these particular salespeople are under the For Real brand. Trust me, I handpicked them. You're going to get me through them. And that's kind of where I am with it.
I believe
Yeah.
that. Oh, go,
Go ahead.
Bo. No, you go.
You're good.
Okay.
Wow.
So as it relates to work-life balance or balance, I don't know if there is a such thing as balance. So I think really that you have to learn to prioritize. You talked about time. So I think you have to really set at what period you are in your life, determine how much of what you do and allocate what time goes where and how much time requires for each category or every part of your life. Because as you said, going back to the cake analogy, which I never thought about, you have to know how much to put in. So you have to take that same concept of time. How much do I give to my family? How much do I give to my job? How much do I give to myself? So I think balance probably is not a good word. It's really about prioritizing efficiently.
At that particular time, too. At
Yeah.
that particular day, that particular hour. Because life happens. I was just thinking about, I had 2 deals set up yesterday for myself at the job, and I had to give those deals to one of my team members, and I had to spend almost 11 hours at the hospital with my mom. So that just took the balance of what we thought I had to do. Those adjustments have to be made right on the fly. And
Yeah.
I profited from the scenario. However, I had to get somebody else to help. And I'm glad I had the position I am so that I have a team and it still can work out at my benefit.
Yeah. And I'll just, have to underscore everything everybody has kind of put out there. I don't believe there's a such thing as a work-life balance. Um, Especially, I believe it's contextual, especially like you said, Lindbergh, when you're just getting started, you almost just have to, you're in it, and you have to, most of it's on you. Like what you were saying, Brother Bussey, you got to lead yourself. So it's all falls on your shoulders. So, at every level, I think it just requires certain levels of effort and energy. Maybe it's not direct, but indirect because you're still leading and stuff like that. But for me, the word that really pops up in my head is just harmony. Are things working together?
Wow.
So I think a lot of times with some entrepreneurs where they begin to not find harmony is because they don't communicate well with others who are involved or impacted by, their entrepreneur endeavors. So it's work-life balance. It is a myth, in my opinion. It's just about, can things still function? Are they still harmonious? Are they still working together? Um, Ultimately, because if you are someone who's going to be a world changer, I mean, you're still going to be, you're going to be on top of it in some way, shape, form, or fashion all the time. So it kind of moves from working in your business to working on your business, and you're still having to be, engaged. You may get a lot more time back, but it's still never going to be like an equal balance to where everybody's getting equal time. And if you've communicated that well with your family or the people that are impacted by it, everybody's okay with that.
Yeah.
And I believe that's necessarily important, especially when you start talking about generational things. When you start to have those conversations and everybody's involved with that, then entrepreneurial becomes generational. And it's something that could be passed on from one generation to the next to the next. And that's how big legacies are born. You know, that's how people that, we know about you know, all these names out here because someone planted that seed and there was a strategic plan for these things to be passed down from one generation to each generation. So everybody's on the same page. So everybody's in harmony and things work. So that's work-life balance. Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
I tried it. It don't work.
That,
So
that that word
One,
harmony is powerful. That's
yeah,
powerful
Yeah.
right there.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What are you gonna
one
say,
of the,
Bus?
Harmony.
one of the things that we often lose sight of the fact is that there's value in inefficiency, meaning that
Hmm.
there are times when it is more valuable to do things that are slower
Yeah,
because the payoff is going to be so much greater.
yeah,
We use this framework called TIDY, time invested, dollar yield. And so all time is not created equal. There are times when you will spend time doing things with your kids that pay off in the long run. It may not feel like it pays off with your business, but we think that we have to work harder or longer at a thing to get that result. And one of the traps that most entrepreneurs fall into is that they tend to be high performers. And so high performers, we don't get, we need the credit and the validation for having done the work, right? And so at a certain level, it starts to work against you, because if you have to be the one that gets the deals done, if you have to be the one that's getting the credit for being the first one in, the last one out, that is not necessarily the thing that's going to move the needle. You really have to learn how to be a better leader, how to get things out of people. And so it's not even just delegation, is just handing a task off to someone. Leadership is about inspiring them, the other people around you on your team, to be able to create exponential outcomes. And so when you start thinking of the world in that way, you start thinking about the leverage that you can create with your time, right? So 11 hours with your mom is not wasted, right? There's no way that it's wasted. But then what we start to do is, if we step back and realize, I would love to be able to have the freedom to never worry about if I had to spend 11 hours every day,
Right.
somewhere other than in my business or something else. And so, yeah, work-life balance is, I think there are these phrases that come through society, but these are things that people who write articles come up with to make people feel better about themselves. And honestly, I think, to be completely fair, I think this is more of a phrase that came about as more women came into the workplace and started asserting themselves and realizing, right, as men, we never really thought about that. It's like, I'm going to my job, I got to work 8 hours, 12 hours, whatever it is. And when I get home, I'm home. That's it. But as you start to see people, and especially during COVID, right, we all became acutely aware of the fact that not having to fight through traffic, not having to deal with being at the office at a certain time, we realized we could connect with people around the world like we're doing here. It gave people a different perspective. And so we're seeing that people are fighting not to go back into the workplace as much, because they recognize that life can have a slower, more fulfilling pace.
Yeah.
And so we're all trying to figure that out. And I think part of that is just understanding what's the greatest yield for the time and effort that you're investing, wherever it is, however much time or energy that is.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking when what you were saying, Brother Bussey, was as far as high performance entrepreneurs. And it made me think about, because then you went right into delegation and the leadership. So when you're working with a lot of your business owners and entrepreneurs, do you find it hard for them sometimes to let go? And
absolutely.
Yeah. It's your baby. It's something you create. It's your baby. You want to.
Yeah,
I think that's where everybody gets trapped up at. It's like, nobody's going to be able to do it as good as I do, so I got to do it.
You got to do it.
And that becomes the trap, because you got it to the point where it is, and so you've gotten, in your mind, you've gotten the credit for it, and also you want it to go so well. We talked to our people about learning how to inspire others.
Yeah.
And also the key is that you got to be able to hire people that are actually better at what you do than you are. Right.
Wow.
And
yes, that's now that right there. Some people are so insecure in their leadership or their particular position, and they feel threatened. That's a good one there. I thought you were going to say hire people that are good at what you're not good at, but you said hire somebody that's almost better than you. Oh, yeah, that's it right there.
Absolutely. Wow. Being able to create that structure that hones best talent. We think of Steve Jobs as a genius because of what he did with Apple. But Steve Jobs was not great at any one of the things that he needed Apple to be able to do. His genius was in hiring people who were great. Johnny Ive was a great designer. Tim Cook, who was great at distribution. All these people understood things better, how to actually do the stuff better than him. He just understood why it needed to be done. He understood when it was finished, right? When it was good enough, when it needed to go in a different direction. That was his zone of genius, being able to lead others, to set them free, to do the things that filled them up, that made them passionate about what they were doing. And so oftentimes when we're in hustle culture, we look at people who, they're on the gram and they're showing what they've accomplished and things like that. And it's because of how great they are. But when we look at those people who are, at the top of the richest people in the world, those lists, those are people who actually have teams of dozens, if not hundreds of people that are working underneath them. And they've been able to attract those people because they have the capacity to be able to let go. And really, do you want the validation or do you want the wealth? Do you want the freedom?
Wow.
Do you want the generational legacy that you can leave? Do you want the impact? Or do you just want that feeling of having worked really hard and gotten this outcome? And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's a different choice and it's a different path. And that's really what we try to present to our clients is if you are out to accomplish something so much greater, if you want to be able to build multiples on your profit, then that's going to require something different than what you've been doing. Einstein's definition of insanity is what? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And most people they're trying to figure out, why can't I grow my business? Why can't I get these outcomes? Why do I keep having relationships that fail? Why does my health keep failing? Why don't my kids love me? And it's because you are bogged down in this one idea of what it means to get the things that you want. And for those who can make that shift, it's transformational. You'll see quantum leaps in your life, the quality of your life, in your business results, because you're learning how to let go of that old idea, those limiting beliefs, and really just starting to lean into the possibilities that exist when you can learn how to be an optimal leader.
That's amazing, because historically, Lee Iacocca, he built Chrysler and it built it to a pinnacle, but then because he wouldn't let it go, he also destroyed the company.
Yeah. A perfect example.
Yeah.
Perfect example. Yeah. But the thing that was, so what happened at that time, especially, was because he had been so successful with Chrysler, we saw a culture of leaders who were being built in his mold, right? And so it wasn't until we got to Silicon Valley, Steve Jobs, those type of people, that we started having a little bit more of a shift. But still to this day, we value these leaders. We look at Elon Musk. He's lauded for his genius and all those things. But there are people who have built Starlink and who've built, helped him to build these companies that they have to have a level of genius that is above and beyond his. He's not a great coder. Right? He's not great at finance or technology per se. He understands it, but in reality, he has to be able to attract those people to build a brand that and a culture that makes people want to come there and work and succeed at a high level. And whatever you think of him personally, that is a skill set that you have to be able to do all the things that he's doing at that level.
That's amazing. So what would you say to someone who has a thriving professional life and endeavors to keep the balance or healthy home life?
I would ask them what the definition of healthy is. It's not the same for everyone, right? If you've got 3 young kids, spending more time at home with them, being physically in their presence, hands-on, changing the diapers, playing games, taking them to movies, playing with them at the park, those things may be more about, that's healthier at that time. As they get older, they're going to need you less and less, but they'll need you in a different way. So where do you put that time and focus and attention versus your career or your business? And I think you have to be realistic with yourself. And then what's the structure that you have in place to allow you to be able to do that? And that's why I say, being a father and a parent is a great addition to being an entrepreneur, because what it does is it gives you that perspective and that focus. It allows you to be able to say, I need this structure, because, if you got a baby, the baby is going to poop and the baby is going to need to be fed at a certain time, right? And as fathers, we're a lot more involved than perhaps our generational fathers were or grandfathers were. And we kind of had that tug and pull to be there more. And whether you're a young woman or young lady, we all have choices to make about the things that matter most to us. And I would say, what is healthy to you, and only to you, not what you believe that you're supposed to want or supposed to be leaning into, right? If you're in a marriage or a relationship, what does that look like? What are those values that you have? You really need to audit that and take time and be really, really honest with yourself about what you really want, and be willing to make those trade-offs, because people will tell you that you can have everything. But the fact of the matter is, you can only have what you can have. You can have anything, but you can't have it without a cost. And so the price that you're willing to pay for certain things is determined by the values that you have. When we are talking with a potential client, bringing a client on, one of the things that we say is that we're looking for business owners who want to work less, but family has to be their number one priority. That's just a value set for our business. We only want to work with people like that. And there are people who say that family is their number one priority, but then they'll spend 16 hours at work. And if you ask them, well, what would you do if you had an extra 8 hours a week? They spend it on the golf course, or they spend it, traveling or doing something else, not with their family. So that's not your priority. That's not a value. And, I make no judgment on that. That's what you want. But a lot of people are not really honest about what they really want. And there's a need that they have. If you're not able to find that balance easily, a lot of times it comes with frustration of not being able to do what you really want to do. And so you're frustrated because you have to be in one place versus the other, whether it's at work when you would rather be at home, or at home when you'd rather be at work. And I think we're seeing that tug of war that people feel emotionally, and it really weighs on them. And so what's healthy to you, right? What are you really after? And let's start from there. And if you are completely honest with yourself, then that allows us to be able to create that framework to build that structure that gets you closer to where you want to be.
That's good stuff.
Speaking of health, being entrepreneurship for many people can be emotionally, physically, and mentally taxing. Because you're just always go, give. And so I know a lot of entrepreneurs, and at some early on, I had a struggle with it too, of just taking care of myself. And so talk to us a little bit about, what do you do for self-care? How have you been able to kind of keep, things balanced? I should say not just balanced from a work standpoint, but just internally. I should say maintain your focus and maintain a good perspective on things to make sure that you could show up how you need to be for business and family.
That's a great question. So when we talk to our clients, one of the things we talk about is that we want to make sure that we're always taking care of client number one. And that's the first person you see in the mirror when you wake up in the morning. So is your health in order? Meaning, where's your diet and your nutrition? Are you feeding yourself the right fuel? I was talking to Barry before we started, and he was asking me if I'm vegan or whatever. And I've been vegetarian. I was raised vegetarian, and I eat salmon, so I'm somewhat pescatarian when I go out to eat. But we don't really cook. We don't cook any meat, any dairy at home. Having an ideal nutritional diet is really important. That you're fueling your body with the right nutrition. That you're working out. That you're fit. We call it being harder to kill, right? And you guys all look like you're fit. I know Barry looks like he lifts cars in the off season. So, but it's how strong can you be, right? Are you harder to kill? Are you taking care of your body at the tip top shape? And you if you notice, you look at highly successful CEOs and highly successful entrepreneurs. Those guys are obsessed with their physical health. They're obsessed with taking care of themselves. And a lot of times what we do is we sacrifice that to get to a certain point, and then we start taking care of ourselves. And a lot of times the damage is already done, and you end up paying the price for that later. So definitely it's important to take care of client number one, physically, mentally. One of the things that happens is that we as entrepreneurs have these stories that we tell ourselves, right? These stories about the fact that who we will be if we are successful. So once I get to this point, it will make me this person that is worthy of whatever it is that you feel and void in your life. And trauma is one of the most hidden motivators for a lot of entrepreneurs. And we don't really talk about that, especially as men. We don't really have that community, that conversation. But we're all being driven. Even if you look at, I was listening to a story about Elon Musk. So it was what's his name? He wrote the book about Elon Musk last year. And he was talking about how you followed him around, right? And so one of the things that he discovered about Elon was that Elon had a lot of trauma growing up. He was bullied when he was sent away to school to this camp. And so when he went back, he bulked up and he felt like he had to learn to fight back. When he got bullied the first time, he came home and his father yelled at him and screamed at him for hours. His father was extremely verbally abusive to him. And so it put something in him, and you can see in his private life that it's a mess. He's got like 11 kids by 4 different women. You know, he's been in and out of marriages and things of that nature. So that part of it, but he's also fueled to be extremely successful. He's maniacally obsessed with building these huge companies. And so there's trade-offs. And so sometimes we can be lauded for the monetary and the business success, but it's at the risk and at the cost of our own physical, mental, and emotional health. And that's a dangerous position to be, because 1% of 1% of 1% is ever going to be Elon Musk, right? In this country, to be in the top 1%, you only need to make $430,000, right? So if you want to be a millionaire, you're in the 1% of the 1%. And then from there, it gets infinitely smaller. So you got to be able to have a very rare skill set. And everybody believes it's possible. It is, but when you're sacrificing the wrong parts of you, right, the chances that you get there are so much slimmer. And so you need to be surrounded by people that can support that, but you got to be able to make those shifts and recognize, in actuality, it's not about working as hard as you possibly can. It's about working smarter, not harder. And part of that is learning how to get the most out of your mind and your body, creatively, emotionally. You know, when you see highly successful entrepreneurs, a lot of them are married. A lot of them are in long-term, faithful relationships, because that stability, having someone who can take care of you and to be able to help you offload that load is super important. Super important. So hopefully I answered your question. I think I took it in several different directions, but.
No, you did, man. That was incredible. Great answer. I think you do a great job when you're speaking of covering a lot of the nuances that people are thinking about. So, Brother Bussey, we appreciate you being on with us. Before we close out the podcast, let our listeners know how they can contact you via email, social media, website information. How can people connect with you?
Absolutely. Well, I'm everywhere on all platforms, Facebook, Frederick Douglas Bussey, Instagram, Frederick.Bussey. I'm on Twitter, X, whatever you call it these days. I'm on TikTok, but it's about to be banned, and I didn't put that much time into it, so don't even worry about that.
Yeah.
And you can connect with me on LinkedIn as Frederick Douglas Bussey as well. I have a free Facebook group for entrepreneurs called the 7-Figure Circle, $1 Million Mastermind. You just want to go to my page and you can find a link for that there as well. Love to hear from people, learn what their journey is about, and see how we can support them if possible. We have a ton of free master classes and revenue and sources in there, resources in there that allow them to be able to support them at whatever stage of their journey they're at. So thank you.
Awesome. It's our pleasure, man. So this concludes another episode of The Lifeline with your hosts, BJE, Lynnsburg Petway, and Bo Powell. Don't forget to check us out at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline and on social media. Look, we're on a mission. We want to bring light and life into your household, so join us and let us hear your feedback, because it's all about bringing life to you on The Lifeline. Y'all take care. God bless.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with host, business expert, and life coach Bo Powell, social media influencer and entrepreneur Lynnsburg Petway, and leadership coach and mental health advocate Barry J. Elliott. Join us next week for another impactful conversation on The Lifeline. God bless.